Hey, this is Joe with Grow It Build It, and today I'm going to tell you all about blunt Mountainmint. If you garden for wildlife, it's very likely you've heard of Mountainmint. There are just under 20 species of the Pycnanthemum genus native to North America. And today I'm going to give you a full profile on one of my favorite species, commonly known as blunt Mountainmint. Although not overly showy, when allowed to grow to a large clump, the white silvery hue it gives provides a subtle beauty that can blend well with any color. And if you garden for pollinators, well, this species just can't be beat. So this video is going to be a full profile and will consist of what it is and why you should grow it, the physical description, growing conditions, seed saving and the best way to propagate it, wildlife and garden uses, and then we will review. So I hope you stick with me and take a dive deeper into this awesome species for pollinators. Okay, so what is blunt Mountainmint? Well, it's a native perennial wildflower that blooms in small clusters of white flowers and is native to the eastern United States from Texas to Illinois and then eastward to the Atlantic Ocean. Scientifically, it's known as Pycnanthemum muticum, but it also goes by several other common names like clustered mountain-mint or short-toothed mountain-mint. But for the purposes of this video, I'll be referring to it as blunt mountain-mint. Why you should grow it. Versatility. The white silvery bracts that surround the flowers give off a silvery hue that make it go well with any other flower in bloom and make it look attractive. If it's grown in full sun, blunt Mountainmint will be fully erect and upright. It doesn't seem to ever flop or reach for the sun like many other species, and it also seems to stand up tall to all storms. Naturalizing. If you have some land or are in a fight with invasive species, blunt Mountainmint can help you. It jumps up quick in the spring, reaching 1 to 2 feet tall by mid-spring, and that behavior combined with the fact that it spreads by underground rhizomes mean that it can quickly naturalize a disturbed area before other invasive species can take hold, and it can really fill in any gaps. I've been using it in a fight with some invasives on no man's land behind my home. It has done well. It's outcompeting other aggressive species like Japanese stiltgrass, chickweed, and others. Pollinators. The variety and quantity of pollinators this plant attracts is nothing short of amazing. It is crazy busy during the hottest parts of summer, and it must produce like an infinite supply of nectar and be able to replenish it quickly based on the number of pollinators I see on mine. And if you guys are enjoying this video, please click the thumbs up and give me a like. It really helps my channel out and I do greatly appreciate it. Okay, so for physical description and identification. Blunt Mountainmint will grow 2 to 3 feet tall in full sun and well-draining soil. Like other members of the mint family, it will have a square four-cornered stem that starts reddish in the spring and transitions to light green and smooth in the summer. The leaves are opposite along the stalk, so they're occurring in pairs. They're about 1 inch wide by 2 inches long and lanceolate in shape. The leaves have a really strong minty aroma when crushed or torn, and it can be used to make a weak tea. And if I find something that looks minty in the woods when I'm walking along, I'll usually rip off a leaf and smell it. And this plant in particular, there's no question that you found Mountainmint. So before it blooms, I may not even know it's there if I'm back in the woods or in my wildflower area. If I brush up against it, it will give off that aroma, that minty aroma, and I'll know that it's nearby. For flowers, dozens of tiny two-lipped flowers occur on a flower head in like a cluster. The blooms open and close over the course of 4 to 6 weeks, and there are silvery white bracts at the flower head as well, which help give it a nice, if not dusty, appearance. We're about to get into growing conditions, but before I forget, this entire video does exist as an article at growitbuildit.com. I will link to that article down below, so if you want a quick reference later, just go to that. It'll save you the time of watching the video. Okay, so for sunlight, the preference of blunt Mountainmint is going to be full sun, but it can tolerate partial shade as well. As you can see, I have some growing in open woods here. For soil types and moisture, it can grow just fine in moist to medium moist sandy loam to clay. It just needs to drain well, so it can die from root rot. Now, no references talk about this plant being drought tolerant, but I have it growing on this fully exposed slope that does receive drought-like conditions. It's thrived there for years without issue, but really just pay attention to your plants. If you notice this start to get signs of leaves crisping up on the outside, give it some supplemental water. So for maintenance, blunt Mountainmint is a member of the mint family and it does spread via rhizomes, but don't be afraid, it's clump forming. So out in the open like this, it's going to expand in a circular way or radial way every year. It's not going to send a rhizome 10, 20 feet off in some direction and sprout out new plants all over the place. It does it radially if it has space, like in a formal flower bed. But to deal with it, each spring, if you think the clump has grown too much, you simply take a shovel and chop around in a circle back to the size you want it to be. Then simply use a trowel or by hand pull up the unwanted shoots. They're shallow rooted, so they'll come up easily. And then it will be that final size that you make it for the coming growing season. So the shoots that you dig up and don't want, you can go plant them somewhere else. You can pot them up and give them to a friend. If you do this in the early spring when the soil is still cool and moist, they'll establish readily and you can have them blooming, that same year. It'll just be a few stalks, but it'll work. That's how I spread it around my woods back there that has all the invasive problems. I mean, this is what I do, and it works great. Okay, so for saving seed, about a month or so after blooming, or definitely by autumn, the flowers should be replaced by these seed heads, which are little dried up hollow tubes. Not terribly different from Monarda, but anyways, we're going to gather these up and we're going to dry them out for about a week in the garage, away from sunlight. And then you can simply crush the seed heads up to release some seed and chaff. The seeds are very tiny, but once they're dry, they can be stored for a couple of years in a Ziploc bag or a plastic container. How to grow it from seed. Growing this plant from seed is pretty straightforward. The only special requirement is that the seed needs exposure to sunlight to germinate. So you can start the seed without any stratification if you prefer. Simply fill the container with moist potting soil and press the seed into the surface. Place the container in a location that gets morning sun and afternoon shade, and then just wait for germination. But although it doesn't need cold stratification, if you are planning on winter sowing seed this winter, well, there's no reason you couldn't winter sow Mountainmint at the same time. It won't hurt anything, and that way the seed will naturally germinate in spring, allowing you to plant seedlings out earlier, and it'll help better establish the plants. Seed for this plant is very difficult to come by. It's hard to purchase. It's often not in stock. So essentially, I'm going to link to an interactive map where you can search for Native Plant Nurseries near you, should you live in North America. So hopefully you can use this resource to find this plant. I will link to it below. Okay, so how fast to establish? I've shown you how to propagate the plant by division and how to germinate the seed. The easiest and fastest way to establish this plant is by division. So if you do know someone who has it, or you know someone nearby that you have permission to get, you can go take a couple shoots in the spring. The shoots will grow quickly and usually bloom the same year. If you grow it from seed, you probably won't get any blooms until year 2. A second year seedling probably isn't too different from a first year division plant. The division really is the easiest way, and that's actually how I got my first specimen. A fellow native plant gardener that I know, he just brought me one day when we were doing a little trade, and that's how I got started with this, and now I've got, I don't know how many plants, probably 20, 30 clumps of this all around. For wildlife, blunt mountain mint will really attract a dizzying number and array of pollinators. A recent survey counted no less than 75 different species of pollinated insects that visited the plant over a 2-month period. This was by far greater than the other species in the study. This little compilation is just a few of the crazy pollinators that I've seen on my front yard mountain mint. It really just brings in so many different ones. It's quite staggering. And the pollinators it brings in are ones that I really don't see anywhere else in my garden. They always seem to be a little unique. When it comes to deer and rabbits, fortunately for gardeners, the strong minty aroma of the foliage means deer and rabbits will leave this plant alone. Like other mints, blunt mountain mint is deer and rabbit resistant. I have never seen damage on any of the plants, and I've been growing this plant in the open woods behind my house and in my yard for many years. For garden uses, as I previously said, blunt mountain mint can work in a variety of settings. Grown in the open in a formal flower bed, it will expand radially and you can easily manage it. You can also plant it inside a large pot to totally contain the spread if you desire, as long as there's some drainage. The rhizomes seem to be pretty shallow. This, combined with the plant's ability to stand upright and its white silvery color, make it so that it can blend well with any other plant. Now, the shallow roots of this plant make it a great candidate for container gardening. This pot I'm holding right here, this sat outside all winter at 0-degree temperatures and survived just fine. so you could probably do container gardening with this plant. Although, to be safe, you may want to keep it in an unheated garage or a shed during the extreme winter. Now, its spreading nature can also make it look great in a border garden or a wildflower area. Mass planting of this look nice. It adds a nice subtle white color to better contrast and accent the other colors in this little micro prairie. Okay, time to review. So, blunt mountain mint will grow 2 to 3 feet tall in full sun and well-draining soil. It is great for pollinators. Although it's not the most showy flower, it really makes up for it in how much insect life it attracts. It is extraordinarily easy to propagate by division, and it's not too hard to grow from seed. And it is very versatile to use in the garden. So that's about all I've got for this video. If you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask me in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give me a thumbs up as it greatly helps me out and I do appreciate it. Finally, as a reminder, this video does exist as an article at our website, which is linked below. So if you want a quick reference, just jump over there and yeah, you guys all have a good one.